Hi, my name is Jamin and I'm a fourth year English major. I've taken many literature classes and read lots of books throughout my university journey, so I decided to share with you my 3 favorite ways to annotate books so that you can write better essays and get the best grades possible. I have this video divided up into a few different sections so that you can find the parts that you're looking for the most. Let's first begin with some actionable steps. Step 1. Know what annotating is. Annotating is when you engage with the content of a text by taking notes, highlighting, circling, underlining, and using sticky notes. There are so many more ways that you can annotate because it's an extremely diverse process. You can tailor it to fit your needs and the kind of book that you're reading. And yes, it does get messy with scribbles and arrows. I know that a lot of book lovers are probably shuddering at the thought of writing in a book, but I am the kind of person who dog-ears my pages when I can't find a bookmark, so I'm already pretty much a book's worst nightmare. But if you cannot stand the thought of writing in a book, or if you just can't write in it because it's either borrowed or you're renting it, then don't worry, stick around for method 2 because that one will be perfect for you. Step 2. Know why annotating is so helpful. Maybe on page 82? No, not there either. Oh, how I hate trying to find quotes after I've already read the book. It's so hard knowing where everything is. I can't remember. There has to be a better way to do this. There is, so stop what you're doing and let's start annotating instead. You don't have to waste time rereading through hundreds of pages. Trust me, I've been there, it's not fun. Thanks to all of your notes, you will be able to easily find whatever you're looking for. Annotating makes important information stand out. And even if you're not an English major, I'm going to bet that you're still having to read a lot of books for your classes. University is like that. So it can be quite difficult remembering the plot and character of every book that you're supposed to be reading. Personally, I think that annotating is a great tool for memorization because it promotes active reading. I sometimes slip into a daze and I think about all sorts of things like, oh, when can I see my boyfriend? What am I eating for lunch? If I'm gonna get a good grade, I have to work, blah, 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 blah. All sorts of things pop up into my mind while reading. It's not great, but if the book is a little bit harder to comprehend or if it's a little dull, then yeah, it happens. I sometimes get distracted. But if I'm annotating, that just can't happen. You need to actually pay attention to take notes and write summaries. Think of it as a little challenge to yourself. It's an excellent way to hold yourself accountable. Now that we've covered all of that, let's take a look at my 3 favorite ways to annotate. Keep in mind, if you're annotating for pleasure, then you definitely don't need to be as analytical. I just have to really analyze the text if I want to write good essays for my classes, especially now that I'm in my final year, so you can pick and choose these methods and techniques however you want. I personally do use each method. It just depends on what supplies I have on hand and how much time I have. If I'm annotating a book in September, it's going to look a little bit prettier than if I'm doing it right before a final exam. I have finally uncovered the best and most effective way to annotate a book. If I know that I'm going to be needing to write an essay, then chances are I'm using this method. It's the one that takes the most time, but I think it's completely worth it. You will first begin by gathering your supplies. You're going to need 4 highlighters, a pack of sticky notes, and 1 pen. I personally like to use these marker pens from the brand Tombow. They come in a wide range of colors, but I only use the lightest ones when annotating because they don't cover the words or bleed through the paper like the darker ones. You can just avoid that by using actual highlighters like the yellow and blue ones. Just use what you have on hand. Plus, those ones are cheaper. The 4 colors I use are green, pink, blue, and yellow, but you can switch that up however you please. I just have a specific way of remembering what each color means because they each evoke a different image in my mind. When I think of green, I think of trees and nature, so I use that color to highlight passages about location and setting. This is especially important if there's a lot of world building, such as in sci-fi or adventure novels. For example, if you're going to write about the ecology in Dune and how the planet of Arrakis affects the strength of the Freeman people, then you're definitely going to use a lot of green. Pink, on the other hand, is used to highlight passages about relationships and connections between characters, not just romantic ones. Whether it be lovers, family, friends, or just mere acquaintances, I think it's really important to annotate these connections because you can tell a lot about a character's inner workings by the way they interact with others. So it doesn't have to be romantic, it can just be any kind of relationship that seems significant to the plot. This is great for novels filled with drama, romance, and mystery. Think of the novel Mexican Gothic. Francis's family treats him poorly, and that's what urges him to go behind their backs and help his friend Noemi. That relationship with his family is so significant to the plot, so it would be in pink. I use blue a lot when annotating because it's the color I have associated with history. Anytime I come across a passage that mentions history or provides some kind of background, I will highlight it in this color. For example, religion, politics, and factories are issues that pop up a lot in the novel North and South. They give the reader crucial insight into the plot, so I marked them in blue. I also use blue when highlighting passages about characters such as their physical appearances and traits. This is visible in my copy of North and South because I always highlighted every part that talked about Margaret's strong personality. I then wrote an essay about how she evolved from a young child to a young woman throughout the course of the story, using those descriptions. Yellow is a wild card. It makes me think of bright flashing signs and exclamation marks, so I use it to mark any passage that I want to stand out. If a character says something infuriating, thought-provoking, interesting, then it will definitely be highlighted in yellow. This is where a lot of my ideas for assignments come from because if I find that part to be interesting, then chances are I will have a lot to say about it, so I can actually create my whole essay around that topic. This can also work for any other kind of assignment. Maybe you need to do a character analysis, so if there's a character who you absolutely can't stand and you've highlighted so much of what they've said throughout the novel, then that can be really helpful as well. Overall, highlighting is great because it keeps everything so organized. You can easily find whatever topic you're looking for because it's separated by color. Now, let's move on to sticky notes. I'll explain in the next method why I'm not the biggest fan of these things, but I do use them a little bit in this method as well. Most literature classes require students to engage in discussion about the text, and they make me so nervous. I start to think all of these things like, oh my gosh, do I sound stupid? What am I going to say? I have no idea what is going on. And I often go into tangents that just lead absolutely nowhere, especially if the professor calls on me and I'm not prepared. If I find a passage or any kind of quote, anything like that that seems relevant, then I will mark it with a sticky note. This has saved me a few times already, and I would really recommend doing it as well. It can just be anything. Some question that you have, something you don't understand, something you thought that was really awesome, and bonus points if you find a way to connect it to another text that you've read in class. Professors seem to love that. They love making connections between texts. So use those sticky notes for finding parts that you can talk about in class. Sticky notes have one other purpose. I put one on each chapter so that I can easily navigate my way around the book. Speaking of chapters, I always write little summaries at the end of each one. In a few sentences, I like to sum up the main points that have occurred in that chapter, and I do write directly on the page. The black pen is also used to underline any quote that I'm 100% for sure going to use on an assignment. So sometimes I will highlight it and then directly underline it, making it extremely noticeable. Additionally, I like to be even more specific when annotating, so I will sometimes draw symbols and letters depending on what I notice while reading. For example, if there's a lot of unanswered questions that are kind of popping up, or if there's a word I don't know, then I will just draw a little question mark beside it. The same thing for figurative language. If there's a lot of foreshadowing, I will use an F, S for similes, M for metaphors, and so on. You can really get as creative with this as you want, and I do recommend drawing a legend because I guarantee you that in a few weeks you're not going to remember what every little letter and drawing stands for, so just make sure to write that up somewhere on the book. There you have it. That is every single thing I do when annotating using method 1. Reading definitely takes longer, but the end result is worth it. Method 2. Remember how I said earlier that you don't actually need to write in the book to annotate it? Well, this one's for you. I know the most obvious and clear way is to use sticky notes, but personally I don't really like them. I've had to only annotate using sticky notes before when the book came from the library and I was borrowing it, but it just turned out to be nothing but a complete flop. I have several gripes with these sticky notes. Firstly, if you use too many, it gets to be so difficult knowing what each little paper is supposed to be standing for and representing. Also, they're not actually that sticky, especially if you do use the more precise ones. So you may have thought, well, you can use the ones that are shaped like arrows and you could put them on the exact line that you're trying to annotate. I've tried that and they just always fall out. And if you use the clear ones, the pen smudges and then gets the page dirty anyway. So I just find them to be really annoying. Plus, they are extremely expensive. You're telling me a pack of sticky notes costs $35? That's outrageous. As you can see, I have a strong dislike for tons and tons of sticky notes. I do sometimes use them in moderation for dividing chapters, but that's about it. So what is method 2? Well, it's essentially the least aesthetically pleasing option, but it's great if you just cannot write on the pages of a book. So what you're gonna need is either a piece of paper, maybe from a notebook, or a digital document from your computer, or maybe from the Notes app on your phone. Whatever you'll be able to easily access whenever you pick up the book, that's what you're gonna want to use. Start off by dividing the document into a few separate sections, one for each topic that you want to refer to later on. It's okay if you have no idea what the text is about or which topics you want to look for, because you can always add more as you go. This is where you will write down page numbers with passages and descriptions that could possibly be relevant. For example, you're going to want to give every important character their own section so that you can easily write down anything that pertains to them in their corresponding section. You can do the same with anything from places to more abstract concepts such as the good and evil in the book Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Be as extensive with these sections as you want, however, you don't want to have too many because then it can just be overwhelming. It's like a page with all these little numbers. So what I also like to do to stay organized is write down the first few words of the quote that I'm trying to remember. So it can just be like one word or two, just so that you can easily spot it when you're trying to find it again in the future. Having these sections is quite helpful because say you need to write an essay on duality. You can easily find the section about good, evil, Jekyll, Hyde, and look at those page numbers that you saved to find the quotes that you need to use on your assignment, in your essay, whatever it may be. I also tend to summarize what happens in each chapter on a separate paper. Regardless of the method, I think that you should always do this because it makes studying for finals so much easier. I've already mentioned this for method 1. Write down those summaries. It only takes a sentence or two to really get the main point across. Let's dive right into method 3. It's basically the stripped down version of method 1, so you will notice many similarities. However, what makes it different is the fact that it's so much quicker and all you need is one pen. That's it. No extra stationery, no extra paper. It's quick and effective and perfect if you do not have a lot of time and you really need to still annotate the most important spots in the text. In method 1, I covered how I annotate passages that relate to setting, location, relationships, character traits, and so on. So for method 3, instead of using colors, I like to draw easy symbols. Instead of green, it becomes a tree, and that tree is marked anytime there's a specific passage about setting and location. A heart is for stuff about relationships and connections between characters. Instead of blue, it's a star, and the star is for passages that describe important characters and their personality traits. I also draw this symbol next to a passage that contains important context about the plot. An exclamation mark replaces the yellow, and that's just for any passage that I really want to stand out. So if someone says something significant, I'll put a little exclamation mark. Don't put away your pen yet. There are a few more things to do when annotating using method 3. I use my pen to underline parts that I know I'm definitely going to want to discuss in my essay or on any other kind of upcoming assignment. Zigzags, on the other hand, are used under quotes that mean I'll probably want to talk about it in class, in discussion boards, or with other students. If the professor calls on me, I will be extra prepared to speak because I also write a few notes about what I think. So if they say, Jamin, what do you think of this part? I'll already have like a few things to blurt out. And surprise, surprise, similar to method 1 and 2, I also have chapter summaries. So there's nothing special here, no rocket science. I just use my pen on the last page of each chapter and write what happened using my own words. And this is just a great time for me to reflect and make sure that I'm actually understanding what's happening. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I know that it was a lengthy one, but I wanted to make sure that I included every single thing that I do when it comes to annotating. And I had a few people asking me to make this video and to show my annotation process, so I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that you enjoyed it. And of course, if you would like more book, language learning videos, and also some travel ones sprinkled in, then feel free to hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye!